My guest today is Andrew Vrbas, Andrew's second time on the show. Andrew is a good friend of mine who really needs no introduction. If you haven't watched our first conversation, feel free to go back and start with that one. But we went into this conversation with no notes, no preconceived topics, ideas that we wanted to talk about. We talk frequently enough that we felt like we could get together and have a productive conversation. So we tried to keep it to an hour. We'll probably go a little bit longer than that like we normally do, but Andrew's a very dear friend and I enjoy visiting with him very much. So with that said, please enjoy this conversation with Andrew Vrbas. You know, I've gotten really tolerant to guests that just show up late. I mean, it's still light outside. Last time we recorded, it was midnight.
That was fun.
I'm glad Paul wasn't here to be the unlucky recipient of another late episode recording. No, it's good. Thanks for making time to do it again.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it. You're my first repeat guest.
Whoo!
Yeah. I had another one earlier that was scheduled that was going to be a repeat guest, but he had to bail, so you get the lucky position.
I'm late, but I don't bail.
Yeah, you didn't bail. And you got to be out of here in roughly an hour anyway.
I just have to be downtown at 7:45.
No,
whatever time that is.
Yeah. You're 30 minutes from downtown, so
Sweet.
Won't be hard to stay there. Yeah, we last time I came in, I had several topics that we could talk about, most of which we didn't hit. I went back and I listened to that episode, and it was all stuff that we would have talked about in a normal weekly conversation, anyways.
Nice.
So I figured this one I didn't even bring in notes.
Nice.
I figured we'd just sort of pick up where we left off.
Since we started talking in 2020, we've never not had something to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like there's been some awkward pauses, very rarely.
And we very rarely go into those conversations with an agenda item.
Yeah, you're good about it. Like, hey, there's been something on my mind. Hey, I want to talk to you about this. You've kind of trained me to do the same thing. Like, hey, there's something on. So if I just like bucket it, hey, I just got to get Tanner's take on this. So that's good. But yeah, most of the time it's just free balling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a meaningful friendship to me for that reason. Having those regular set cadence things that are on the calendar that you look forward to, that you don't want to miss.
Yeah.
Like I've told you about my old man breakfast.
Yeah.
I had one of my old man breakfast buddies in here to talk.
Oh, which one?
Jim Wither, my neighbor, sort of the co-founder of the old man breakfast.
I've been to your old man breakfast.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So had Jim in, and we talked about the value of having those friendships where you're going to be in that person's proximity.
Yeah.
And when it's going to happen, and it's just predictable,
Yeah.
and it's as valuable to them as it is to you. I think I learned that during the COVID era with the campfire.
Yeah.
And just have really not wanted to let that go.
Yeah.
So having the weekly thing, it's been meaningful to me.
Me too. You taught me that.
Yeah. Had you had one of those before?
No.
Any sort of a set cadence with somebody?
Dude, no guys do. Do you know any other guys that do?
No.
So when I tell other guys,
guys that I do a weekly thing with.
Sure, but that's probably like your instigation there. Like
could be.
The guys I talk to and say, yeah, I've got a friend that I talk to pretty much once a week for about 4 years. They're like, what? like they can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
Like
why? Why is that the case?
I don't know. I think men are just, it's like the stereotype of being not communicative.
Mm.
And so so since our friendship, I start to do the same thing with some other friends. Like, hey, make sure that we have a regular cadence, regular touch base. And the amount of stuff what I learned from you, and I'm open to it, and you've taught me, was like just having somebody that you can go to and talk to, just open up to. And guys just typically don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't think women have it either, though. So I don't even know if it's a male-female thing. I think just people are more connected today than they've ever been, but they're less connected than they've ever been in depth of relationship.
Yeah,
and
I would agree with that.
The depth of relationship that you and I have been able to go to is more intense than a lot of people that I've known. And
is that because of the tech that it makes you feel like you're more connected?
Yeah.
So it's sort of an easy button for that connection gene.
Yeah. It's just like it's like cheap calories.
Cheap calories. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's the more personal you can get, the more real it feels.
Yeah.
Like you and I don't see each other face to face that often.
No, probably like 10 times.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe even that.
even half of that.
Right.
But when we see each other, it's
Yeah.
it's like we've been hanging out every week.
Right. Except you've never come to Nebraska.
Yeah, I've never been invited.
That is, dude, I was waiting to see, like, wait a second.
You
That's
keep
probably
trying
true.
to spring the sauna on me, so I definitely.
It's
we're
sauna
in that
season. It's
too.
sauna season, buddy.
Yeah. When does the snow hit the ground in Nebraska?
I mean, okay, we got a bunch of rain. If it had been colder, we would have had a ton of snow.
Oh, really?
I mean, it could snow now. It could not snow until February. Like, you just never know. So it's starting to get colder. Oh man, when it's snowing in the sauna, it's just like magic, man. Like, I one time we saunaed when it was like negative 20 degrees straight temperature, and there was snow on the ground, but it's 200 degrees in your sauna. And you go outside, it's negative 20, your hair freezes. There's something about it. And there's something about it too, because like I'll cut wood and I store it I season my wood for a long time. Like I'm always a year and a half ahead on my wood.
Basically your fence, is not?
It's my fence. Yeah, I burn my fence.
Burn your fence through the year?
Through the year. And because my neighbors go to Florida, so it's like perfect. So like they're gone, so I don't need the fence there anymore. But yeah, like, okay, so it's wood that I have cut and seasoned and that I'm heating this sauna with, that I'm keeping myself like warm with. There's something about it.
Yeah.
And it's the process of it too, because I can't just go push a button and my sauna's on. Especially when it's negative 20, like I had to be building up heat for like 2.5, 3 hours to get it to temperature. So it's this whole process. It's like the forward thinking of it. I had to prepare wood a year in advance to season. I had to prepare the sauna a few hours. Like, people just we don't think like that anymore. But the more that we do things that are longer term builds, I think the gratification is just so much more. Like if my sauna was something you just go push a button, oh great, it wouldn't mean as much to me. But it's a meaningful session. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger has that quote about a physique.
Oh really?
That a physique is like one of the most pure things ever, because it can't be borrowed, it can't be bought, you can't steal it from somebody.
Right.
You see somebody with a good physique, they put a lot of time and effort into it.
Right.
And most things that are meaningful to you have that as kind of a common thread. Like
100%.
building a garden is the same way.
Right.
You see somebody with a banging garden that's producing a lot of stuff, it didn't start even a planting season ago. Like they had to really put thought and time into it, and the layout and the watering system and the soil fertility and how to have plants for, attracting pollinators and like those things. You don't realize how deep that pool goes.
You don't.
Sauna is not something that I have that full context for.
Yeah.
But I'm wired to value those things too.
Yeah.
And so every time we talk about your sauna experience, I long for that, because mine's just a, one person, easy button, go sweat a little bit and be done with it. But
well, your campfire group that you had, like I had a sauna group during COVID, like we'd get together and we'd sauna. So, but the conversations you have in a sauna, it's hard to have pretense when it's really hot, because you're sort of false. Everybody has this false self. Everybody has this sort of, facade up. When it's 200 degrees in that sauna and you're in there for 15 minutes or whatever, like you have real conversations in there. Like it's real. You see, when I brought people in that haven't done it a whole lot, or maybe never, like, and you just watch them, and all of it just gets broken down, and you have to be real. You can't have a phone in there, so you can't be texting. Like you're looking like this. So I don't know. There's something about that discomfort and the breaking down of, I don't know, what is that? It's like breaking down. It's not really security or safety. It's just, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortably hot. That's what saunas are for. The more you do it, the more you get accustomed to it. Same with like ice bath, like, because I just go right into the ice bath after that. Like it does something to you, man. Those extremes.
Yeah, it's a thing that requires your full attention.
Yes, exactly. It channels you in. It focuses you in.
Yeah, harder to be distracted and go in, like you said, with pretense when you're sweating and your body realizes like, oh, you're about to die if you stay in here.
Right.
Start sending off your panic alarms, and then you have to be present in order to just maintain composure.
Yeah, because everybody has these built-in autonomous. It's like it's almost like an autoimmune response. We all have it. Like, oh, he's the funny guy. He's the he cracks the joke. He does, but all that sort of just fizzles. And maybe it's also the vibe I said is like, we're going to talk about real stuff in here.
Mm.
You know?
Do you jump in early?
Oh yeah.
You do.
Oh dude.
Do you have like preset questions that you go in
we,
with?
We have in the past, like we had one time a friend of mine said like, we're going to bring an interesting fact, like research something and talk about it. And so your 15-minute session or 11-minute session is all you. So, the one guy talked about the difference between a mule deer and a white-tailed deer. Like that was his thing. Or, it could be a random town or so some of it was pre-screened, but a lot of it, people are the subject to whatever thing that I'm reading or what, like something that I'm really into at that time.
Whimsy.
Yeah, like something that I'm going deep into, and so usually works out.
So talk about the sauna process then, because I think you mentioned this last time, but you are Finnish, correct?
Yes.
It's like the home of sauna.
Yep, home of sauna.
So what makes a real pure Finnish sauna? You don't even call it like a sauna session. You call it I'm taking a sauna, right?
Yeah, right. So my grandma was not from Finland, but she grew up speaking Finnish. So her parents were Finnish. And I was able to go with her, it was a fun experience. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was like, 16, maybe 15. I went to Finland with her and my mom and my uncle and my aunt to go visit our family and our like home place. And but my grandma, so it's sauna. That's how the Finns say it. Sauna.
Yeah.
And it's more of a longer process thing. I can't remember the stats, but there's like a certain number of people in Finland. And there's a certain number of saunas. There's a lot of saunas.
I think there's more saunas than people. I
don't know, dude. It's like it's like Nebraska and cows.
Yeah, right.
The cows and people. So yeah, I mean the process, what makes like a Finnish sauna. I don't know if I'm like a nerd on it, frankly, but I think the thing. Let's see if this makes sense.
Just speak to your sauna experience.
Oh, my sauna experience.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be the traditional Finnish sauna experience. But
look, man, like
if I'm going to come to Nebraska, sell me on the experience.
Here's what we're going to do. Like, it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, there's a piece of it that's like it's hot. Your brain is telling you get out because you will die. It's not wrong. You stay in 200-degree sauna for a certain amount of time, you're going to die, right? Like that's just the reality. So you have to like override that. And it's like, hey, stay with me. Like, we're going to get through this. And it's like, it's not easy sometimes. So there's for everybody, but you got to push through it a little bit. You can't, the biggest mistake, and I don't let this happen, is like, oh, get in for 30 seconds. Oh, it's hot. Get out. Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the process. We're going to get in. We're going to get a good sweat going. We're going to like override that mental thing of this is too hot. We're going to push through, and then we're going to get out. We're going to, if it's super cold out, we don't have to do an ice bath. But if it's not super cold out, we're going to jump in the ice bath. We're going to stay in there for as long as you can. Your head's spinning, but it's just like the shift. I don't know how to describe it. And the cold too. I mean, the cold is same thing. Your mind's like, don't do this. This sucks.
Yeah.
Like, this is too cold. Get out. But if you push through and you control your breathing, it's just as much of a mental shift as it is anything else.
Mm.
But I also think there's just something spiritual about it. Like, it slows you down. And think about how, like, we're not slow. The American culture, our society, is not slow. And that is a process where it's just like, we're going to be out there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's all we're going to do. We're going to drink water. We're going to sauna. We're going to ice bath. We're going to sauna. We're going to ice bath. Do that 4 times at least.
So you go 15 sauna.
15 sauna, 11 to 15 depends, and then be outside.
Couple minutes ice bath.
Yeah, and you got to get cold. So the biggest mistake too is people don't get cold enough.
Mm.
Maybe you need to like do the extremes, and there's science behind heat shock proteins and cold shock proteins and how that's really good for your body. Like, I don't know the science. Whatever. People have just been doing it for forever, and it's in my family. And so my grandma would tell me that as a girl, like, she had a sauna once a week, and that was sort of that was their family thing. And so I've always wanted a sauna in my life, and then COVID happened, and that's when you and I were talking.
That's right.
Like, when we first met, I'd be working on my sauna with my headphones, and like building that sauna in that horse trailer was probably one of the best things I've ever done.
Because y'all use it a lot. How often are you saunaing? Taking a sauna
I wish,
during the week?
Yeah, I wish more. I mean, there'd be some weeks where I'd do it 2-3 times a week. Anymore, like with 3 boys, once a week, I'm doing good.
Do you get them in there?
No.
The wife?
No, yeah, Abby and I do it. So, but it's a little bit rarer because we need somebody to watch our, 1-year-old. So, but my boys know. And I'll tell you, I look at it as almost like an initiation rite.
Mm.
They're not, my son, they like to go in there with me to start it, and they like to but no, when I'm saunaing, no, that's not your thing. Like one day when you're old enough and you can handle it, yes. But I think I like keeping certain things sacred like that, like set apart,
Yeah.
so that at some point they can enter in and it'll be like, oh, I get to sauna now.
Yeah. It'll mean more to them when
Totally.
you include them in part of the process.
Yes, because nothing pisses me off more, Tanner, than when people don't take that process seriously.
The sauna process?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like showing up, oh, I had a few beers, oh, this will be fun. No. Like you don't. That's not what this is. Like go to the YMCA. Go to that sauna. This, if we're gonna do this, like you're gonna be present. It'd be like you invite a friend over to have a good conversation. They're just sitting on their phone texting. Like that's how I look at it.
Right.
No, not in my sauna.
There were times
I should get a sign, dude. Not in my sauna.
Not in my sauna. You old curmudgeon, sauna curmudgeon. There were times around the campfire that we'd realize like phones come out and then you see the glow on somebody's face of their phone and you got to call somebody out.
Yeah.
Put that
right.
phone away, man.
Right.
You can be without it for a couple hours. That's
Right.
fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Is there a version 2 of your sauna that you have planned? You thought about that?
Oh man,
I mean, you'll always have the mobile sauna, but
always in the mobile. Look, you saw my brother's, my brother Ben's.
Yeah.
Woo!
Legit.
He did such a nice job on that. I have it in my head like, okay, I do believe that people need to slow down. We need to understand that we're in the moment. So like, okay, this is one of the problems that I have in Christian theology sometimes. We talk about heaven as a future state. Someday I will go to, right? It's always something that I'm going to, hey, one day if this and then this and then this, I will be here. Do you ever hear of this book called Be Here Now? It's like referred to as the hippie Bible. Gosh, I can't remember who. It was like in the Timothy Leary days. I don't think it was Leary, but it was one of those guys. Yeah, I should look that up.
I will look it up.
Be Here Now. And it was this whole thing of, I mean, this is right around like the psychedelic revolution. Like people were experiencing LSD for the first time and like seeing God, or what they thought was God. But I don't mean to condone like that was all good and great and fine. But my point is, and I think this is very applicable to Christianity. I think it's applicable to slowing down in our routines, that maybe the beauty, maybe wonderful things aren't just someday. What if it was our everyday routines? What if it was something that was like now? And it could be something as simple as making a cup of coffee. It could be something as simple as a sauna, conversation with a friend. But how many people truly slow down in the moment versus just constantly thinking in either the past or the future, frankly? And so like even within the Christian faith, like, hey, what if we could access God now? Like, what if we could commune with God right now? Not someday I'll get to meet him. Like, well, have you met him now? Like, what about now?
Yeah, that deferral mindset is something that I catch myself in quite a bit. Less so now because I'm aware of it, and I realize that it's part of my wiring to think, well, one day I'll do X.
One day I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Like one day, because you asked me about like future state sauna. Like, dude, in my mind, I've got like a sauna village laid out, and we're invited, like, we're doing a sauna clinic. I'm actually in touch with dude, I'm in touch with like multiple people in Finland and in the United States about doing a sauna festival in Hastings.
Really?
Oh, dude, I'm in touch with like the sauna, like the Finnish sauna society. Yeah. And I formed like the Nebraska Sauna Society. It's like
That's
a joke,
great.
but like, so it's not like I don't have those plans and those thoughts, because I do the same thing, but I have to remind myself like, just enjoy, because then it becomes something like an idol and something that it's like you're constantly reaching for and you never get.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I just love sauna, man. Like, let's just enjoy this. Isn't this wonderful? I'm not naturally wired that way, but my wife Abby taught me that. She's the one that taught me, if you're not satisfied in the now with something that you're never gonna get it. You're
Yeah.
never gonna get happiness.
That's Ram Dass that wrote that book.
Ram Dass, yeah. I knew he was in that era, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, Ram Dass. Be Here Now is like the hippie Bible. I mean, it's like
You're right in that the American way is to constantly be thinking about progress and moving forward and getting ahead, and I think there's a healthy tension to be struck between. I mean, ideally, you would always be content in the moment.
Sure.
However, that drive to pursue something is an animating principle.
Yeah.
That keeps you from stagnating.
Right.
And so it just requires that you pay attention to, okay, am I being too happy and content in the moment and not in pursuit of something so that I can make life better for those around me?
Yeah.
But you can get so heavy-handed that direction that you forget to just be present in the moment. And I think it's something you and I have shared as an experience. We tend to err on the side of activity.
Oh, yeah.
And like pursuit.
Yeah.
And years will go by, decades will go by, and you forget to celebrate something that you had, that you should have, like a victory that you had.
Totally.
10 years in business. We talked about that in our first conversation.
Yeah.
The difficulty of celebrating those things. So the
You're
tension
right.
between the two is important.
That's really well said. The tension is important. And I think it's also just like, where is your security? We're all looking for something that roots us. Like, oh, I'll be happy if this, I'll be secure if this. And if we can find that, if we can be anchored in something that never changes and is always is in the future, is in the current, and is in the past, and is the all powerful, is if we can be rooted in that, then that allows us to, like, our security, our happiness to not have to be in if I have a bad circumstance or if I have a good one. So then it does allow us to be out in the future and thinking, or be in the but we're not, like, our security isn't baked in it. I don't know. It's a hard thing to, like, talk about. I think you kind of have to experience it.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. You talked about listening to God and finding direction for your life, trying to figure out where He wants you to be.
Yeah.
I don't think we touched on this in our first conversation, though it's come up in subsequent conversations a couple of times.
Yeah.
Do you hear God speak?
Like, audibly? The audible voice of God. I can say I've never heard the audible voice. 'Cause, like, even in the Old Testament, there's moments where, like, the audible voice is speaking to Moses, for instance. I've never heard the audible voice. I've had God tell me some things in a funny way, in some funny ways, and probably stories that are too long to share.
We got time.
Well, there was one. So one of the first purchases that we made as a business was a 1971 Volkswagen bus. Great investment, right? And Abby and I went on a tour, like, around to different stores and, like, talking to consumers, and we slept in YMCA parking lots, which was a lot of fun. Like, there were some fun moments and then some crazy moments, but when we first picked it up, it was like trouble from day one, like, mechanically, lots of issues. Well, we're driving from Colorado, where we picked it up, to Nebraska, where we live, and we made it to Abby's hometown, and it broke down. Found a guy that would work on it all night, because we had a store opening to get to in Indianapolis. And so this guy's working on it all night. Well, I get up in the middle of the night to go check on him, like, gosh, this is gonna be done, and I drive over there, and in Abby's father's car, Jeep Wrangler. I'm on my way back to her house. It's like 4 or 5 in the morning, still dark. And I'm just, I gotta make this happen. I gotta go. Like, I'm in that what we talked about, that future state of just, if this doesn't happen,
trying to control it,
trying to control everything. And I'm driving along, and the car shuts off, just out of the blue. Pull over to the side of the road. I look down. You know where the odometer is? Ever told you the story?
No.
I look at the odometer, where it reads off. It says NO space BUS, no bus.
What did it mean to you at the time?
I said, screw that. I got the car to start and I was like, no. But I remember that to this day. You know, what if I had stopped, Tanner? And I was just telling someone else recently about this. Like, what if I had stopped? What if I had taken that as an act of God, which I do believe it was? I mean, why did that thing say no? Why did the car turn off? It just turned off. And like, so at the time, Tanner, I was so wrapped up in what I wanted to do, what I was going to do. And I did it, by the way. I drove all night. Once we got it done and like to Indianapolis and made it on time and all that stuff. But was it that important? What if I had slowed down? What if I had like recognized, you know what? God's trying to tell me something. Why? Why am I in a hurry? Why am I trying to control so much? You know, what if I had done that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have listened. I was 24 years old, 23 years old. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's been a few times like that where I think God's like been very clear with me. There's been a few times. There's been a few times. Did I tell you the one with the Hastings College T-shirt story?
No.
You want to hear another?
Yeah.
I've been talking about
Bring it on, man. We're here.
All right. Well, I was in West Africa. I was in Liberia, and Andy and I, you met Andy, our head of impact, and we were looking at this palm project of sourcing. And I was visiting with some people there in Liberia. And what was kind of cool about their culture, this company called J Palm, is that they were like, hey, we're going to make our lives better and the lives of the people in our country better. We're going to do it. Like, we can do it. That's very unique. You go to very impoverished countries in Africa, and the aid machine is so strong that people are bred to be like, hey, you know, hand out. These people weren't. They're like, we're going to do it. And it was just so cool. It was such a passionate moment. Well, I got so fired up with them. I was just riding that energy. You ever feel that where you're just like, gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the building, and I was just walking around the kicking rocks, and I was kind of asking God, this is so cool. I feel so passionate, but God, like, why don't I have this energy back home? Like, why can't I access this? What do you want me to keep doing this? And I didn't ask those questions out loud, but that's what was going on in my head, you know? I kid you not, 20 feet away, and we're in rural Liberia. 20 feet away, I look up, and walking towards me is a kid with a Hastings College T-shirt on from my freshman year. The chances of that, and Andy was there with me, dude. Like, Andy was there, and he's like, you know, he wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, but he couldn't deny it, and we were both in tears. I said, Andy, this is just what happened. The chances of that. Now, did he have anything to tell me, this kid? No, I went and talked to him, but it was just like a sign of like, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
And I have like 2 or 3 more of those in my life where it's been very obvious. But most of the time now, it's the quietness. It's like, to the degree I can be quiet and I can just stop, which doesn't always happen. And I'm meditating on his truth, then he reveals. But it's to the degree I'm quiet. Like, he doesn't scream at me. But I think God was gracious to me in those times as I look back, because there's no way I was being quiet. I was just plowing.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
I ask that question of Christian people a lot, particularly Christian men.
Yeah.
When they make a comment about hearing from God or seeing God's direction or what have you, I'll ask them, okay, well, how does that sound to you? Even like my pastor who I've had in here. And I've yet to meet somebody yet who had this big, like,
really
audible experience. It's always just a little whisper, just a little nudge. And I think you're right in that this goes back to what we were talking about with sauna. When you're always in pursuit and you're always active, you're always going after something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise generated by that activity. And
Yes.
that if you don't have a practice to be still, you don't hear those whispers.
You miss it.
There's just too much going on that you miss the little whispers, you miss the little nudges.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm like you, I have not had that experience where I've heard something audibly, and I don't have that many experiences in my entire lifetime around faith and Christianity and private school and churches. Like, I don't have that many experiences where I even felt like I was still enough to hear the whisper.
Yeah.
I have some of them. I have a handful, but I'm not well acquainted enough with that voice
Yeah.
or that nudge yet to be fully confident that this Hastings T-shirt
Yeah.
is God talking
Right.
to me, and not just like, oh man, that's a cool coincidence. Like, what are the chances of that?
Yeah.
I found that I had a nudge. I think I've told you the story of mushrooms in Colorado.
Mhm.
Like I've never been somebody that's been into drug use. I mean, I talked with my buddy Madison about marijuana use
Mhm.
not that long ago in here, but like doing mushrooms, doing LSD, dropping acids, not my thing.
Mhm.
But I did have occasion to have an experience in Colorado that was what I would consider catastrophic in the moment. I mean,
Mhm.
it was gnarly.
Mhm.
And the thing that I held on to that sort of kept um, my feet grounded was that verse, "Be still and know that I'm God."
Mm.
And it was this thing that I just sort of repeated over and over again. Just be
Mm.
still and try to listen. And on the way back home, the next day we got up, it was me and a friend. We got up and we both had kind of a similar experience, though in separate
Mm.
parts of the cabin. We
Mm.
didn't spend a whole lot of time together, but it was pretty heavy duty on both of us. And we decided we'd go ahead and cut the trip short. Like, there's no sense in staying around for another 2 days. Let's just kind of clean up things and head back home. And on the way back home, I remember thinking, man, I'm just in this deferral mindset all the time, going back to that topic. And there are some things that I assume will happen one day in the future, but I'm missing the opportunity maybe to pursue them in the short term.
Mm.
And that was a catalyst for us to end up moving to Bastrop County.
Wow.
It was like on the way home, pulled my phone out and texted Ashton, hey, you've talked about this property in Bastrop County you want to go look at. And I had told her up to that point, no way.
Yeah.
We're staying where we are. And that was a sort of a nudge. It was one of those nudges.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think too, when you're constantly thinking about what the next thing is, when you're constantly in pursuit of something, you miss out on this notion that you have to take care of the things that are already under your purview
Yeah.
before you can be trusted with more, right?
100%.
Like my buddy Tate and I have talked about this several times, where Ashton and I always wanted to have a farm. We always wanted to have property. But we had long looked at it as this thing in the future that, like, we just couldn't wait to get there.
Yeah.
We couldn't wait
Right.
to buy 10 acres so we could have a farm.
Right.
And we missed out on, for years, the 7/10 of an acre that we had in Austin that was like prime to have something done with it. Like, half
Right.
of it wasn't developed into anything.
Right.
It was just sort of this raw piece of land that we could make garden beds in.
Yeah.
We could have chickens
Yeah.
in. And when we had that kind of paradigm shift of thinking about that lot as a farm, and we started to adopt some farming principles in a microcosm of what we thought we wanted,
Sure.
we realized, like, oh man, this is actually something that we want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, I could be over romanticizing it, but I don't think God would have opened a door for us to make the move that we did
Right.
if we couldn't prove that we could be trusted with the little microcosm
Right.
first.
Yeah.
It's like, when you look at this as a farm and you show that,
Right.
you're actually going to be responsible and be in pursuit of making it better and
Right.
being a good steward of the
Yeah.
thing that you have. It's that verse that he who can be trusted with little can be trusted with plenty.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the truth.
I think so too. Thankfully, right? Because what if you didn't? Like, what if you didn't? If you take your example, and if you and Ashton hadn't really appreciated what you had, and then you got some, how much harder would it have been then? Then you're in constant pursuit. It's I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
I think it would have been impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about the stressors that we took on 3 years ago, moving to where we did.
Yeah.
Like, we went from small to large, and a handful of responsibilities to, okay, now I've got more on my plate than I really have time for.
Right.
Like, feeling like you're redlining.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have made it to the point that we are now with our sanity intact
Right.
if we hadn't built some of the habits
Yeah.
of knowing, like, okay, if this garden's going to produce, we've got to spend time cultivating it.
Right.
If we had just jumped to, now we've got this farm to maintain, we
Right.
wouldn't have had any of that built into our life system.
Yeah. It's good self-awareness.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, some of us have that self-awareness. Sometimes it just happens to you,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a good way to look at anything in your life that you're trying to build that
Yeah.
takes time,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like building a business.
Yeah.
Where if you look at it in terms of I've got to build this thing so it gets to a point that I can sell it and
Right.
make my return and
Yeah.
then use that to jump into this next thing,
Right.
and you end up constantly in pursuit of something and not being a good steward of the thing that's already the bird in the hand,
I think so.
right?
Yeah.
We talk about that a fair bit, about like the knowing that there will be a day when we won't be stewarding this thing anymore
Mhm.
in our businesses,
Mhm.
and what that transition will be like.
Yeah.
And I think there's been periods of my life where I spend too much time thinking about that
Mhm.
and forget that there's still these things to do now that I'll look back on way into the future
Yeah.
and recognize like, oh man, at that point in my life, I was already thinking about the next thing and
Right.
not realizing like the thing that I was after, I already had.
Right.
It was the bird in the hand.
Step into where you're at. Like, step up to the plate. Like, don't be on the bench. You're there,
Yeah.
Like, go. I also think, I don't know if you feel this way too, but like, we need other people around us to help us discern things. And if we have enough people close to the situation, like you and me, can speak into it once a week and say, yeah, what do you think? And the person that's closest to me is Abby. Like, Abby, do you feel like things are, where are you at in this spectrum? Like, do you feel like this is the right path to be on? And so I think other people in community can help us too. It's not all up to us.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard when you're at the top of the company too, because some of those things you would want to bounce off of your colleagues in the C-suite,
Sure.
but some of them aren't appropriate to do that with.
Sure.
And so you kind of need the sounding board of,
Yep.
Somebody that's in a similar position,
Yeah.
but has no interest in your
Yeah.
business. They're
Yeah.
just going through their own sort of
Yeah.
trials. And having that sounding board's it's been a thing that I think has gotten me through
Yeah.
some times that I may not have gotten through
Yeah.
otherwise.
Same.
I
do. I think a lot of founders too, like us, we constantly run through this thing of, am I the right guy? Am I the right person? Like, because somebody could do this better. And that's not untrue sometimes. So it's like, how do you get out of your own way, get the right team, but then not completely step out where, oh well, I don't know anything. And I've done both. Like I've gotten people in where like, okay, go have fun, and sort of step back too much. And then there's times where I thought, oh well, I need to be everything. And so it's just an interesting tension. You need a lot of self-awareness and humility,
Mm-hmm.
and discernment, frankly, to like who are the right people, who are the right stewards, because you get to a point and there are people that you need to bring in that
Mm-hmm.
they're better at what you do than you are, and that's how things scale.
Yeah. Yeah. I've in the times that I've talked to some younger people that have aspirations to start a business, it's the thing that I'll tell them is my experience is that the highs of running a business, when it's good, it's better than what you're going to experience having a job, even if it's a job where you get little rewards from succeeding like a sales job. But the lows are much, much lower.
Yeah.
So like you raise your ceiling quite a bit for
Right.
finding meaning in your job and, building
Yeah.
something. It's not the same when it's not your own thing.
Right.
But the failures, boy, they're a lot harder to tolerate.
Yeah.
And it requires building that muscle
Yes.
of being able to recognize that you said it in the last time we recorded, but that Big Lebowski, like being able to tell yourself nothing's fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna get through this. And the more you run into those walls or the things that would have been derailing,
Yeah.
lawsuits are a good example of that.
Yeah.
Anytime I've got to call an attorney
Yeah.
and have them draft a letter,
Right.
yeah, I've gotten better now at recognizing like, okay, I know what this is. It's a well-worn path.
Yeah.
There's no nuance to it. It's
Right.
not something I'm going through for the first time.
Yeah. Resilience.
Yeah, and it occupies a different place in your brain.
Yeah.
When you realize, okay, now that I know what this is, as a younger CEO, it was very easy for me to get wrapped around
Yeah.
the axle
Oh, totally.
and just totally emotionally involved in something that you realize in hindsight
Right.
wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
We survived it. Business is still intact. Be fine.
I've had to learn that from others that I've worked with. I'm not predisposed to that. I think it's something you have to just, some people probably are more predisposed. I definitely am not. So I've had to learn it, still learning it, but it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. I tell, I have some college kids that come in every once in a while, entrepreneurship classes or whatever, and they want my advice. And my advice to almost all of them is don't start a business.
Really?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Hmm.
And then I always preface it with, don't do what I'm going to tell you to do. Like I had a mentor that told me that sometimes, like, don't do anything I tell you. Like, but just take this for what it is. And sometimes I'll say, throw this in the trash. Like, I'm just giving you the raw and real. I said,
why is that your advice?
Because I'd say go learn, go discover and learn good. So keep the fire burning, right? Keep those creative fires burning. So you have a creative fire, like you want to solve a problem, you want to see something, like keep that burning. Don't let that die. That's the problem. That's a mistake. Some people go get a job and they let that die. So keep that burning, but go learn some processes, go learn some skills, go work for good bosses, go work for bad bosses. Like learn where it's not all on you.
Yeah.
Because when you're 20 years old, and it depends on your support system, right? That's why I say, throw this away. Like, don't do this. I'm just giving you my raw here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of factors here, but do you have a good network of people that can, if you have a father, so like my sons, for instance, if they wanted to start a business, I've been through the roller coasters, so I might be able to help my sons navigate those a little bit better. My dad, like, could not, he hadn't been through the same thing, so he wasn't able to help me navigate through them.
Yeah.
And so it depends on your support network too. Like, do you have people that can coach you through it and those sort of things? But I think most people expect, just go run. And our culture now is like, everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. Everybody needs, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about that.
I agree that there's experiences that were valuable to me to have gotten prior to me being responsible for myself.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I never had
learning those lessons on somebody else's dime.
I never had those.
And you didn't have them.
I didn't have them.
Yeah. So let's say you are the 22-year-old that's in a room hearing yourself speak. What would you have thought about that? Had you
I'd say
heard
screw
that?
this guy. I'd say screw this guy. I don't care.
Me too. I think the person that
and there's
starts
some of those,
business,
and that's good.
Yeah.
Like, that's good, dude. Like we hired somebody recently, and in the last interview, it was like sort of the last, just, cultural fit interview with this person. I argued with her why she shouldn't join the company.
Really?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I tried to dissuade her. I was like, hey, look, here's why I don't think you should work for us. And it wasn't her specific. I was like, if you're this way, don't. And it wasn't making presupposition that she was that way. I just said, like, let me argue against why you shouldn't join. Like, let me say, here are the reasons why you shouldn't join.
Yeah. And
I think that's healthy, because it's gonna keep the people out that they think, oh, this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's different. Like, the expectations are probably higher. The rigor is probably higher. The level of investment and energy required is probably, so don't join. Like, don't start a business unless you're willing to go through pain.
Yeah. For the right kind of person, for the wrong kind of person, if they hear you say, hey, don't start a business, and they decide, maybe I shouldn't, you're for sure the wrong kind of person to start one.
That's exactly
right?
it.
That's the kind of person that goes, man, fuck that guy.
Yeah,
I want to start a business. I'm going to do it anyway.
It's like Navy SEAL training, right? They're constantly.
I'm not a SEAL.
Oh, I thought you were.
I don't think so.
Oh, you been lying to me?
No.
Oh. But you know what I mean? Like, these guys, they say, quit, go ring the bell.
Yeah.
Just ring the bell. You're just one bell ring away from stopping this pain.
Coffee and donuts.
Go. Coffee and donuts. Go. There's right over there. Go. Get out of here. Stop.
Yeah.
And some people do. That's good. They're going through a process of weeding out. And I think, did we talk about this? Passion is, like, the word passion, suffering is inherent in the word passion.
No, I don't think we talked about this.
I'm passionate about this. Are you passionate about it? Well, you're only passionate for things that you suffer for. It's inherent in the word passion. Suffering is inherent in the word passion from the Latin root. And so I think if I didn't know that, it's like, oh, passionate, that just means, oh, I have fun doing this. Like, this is something fun. Like, oh, no. Passion comes from pain and suffering. And like, nobody wants to talk about that, but you have to have that level of investment into it. And it doesn't have to be like major pain and suffering, but there has to be some form of sacrifice for you to be passionate about anything. Like, show me anybody that's truly passionate that hasn't sacrificed or suffered in some way for that thing. It doesn't happen. Like good relationships aren't that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to wait for my ass to get here late.
It's the story of our friendship.
I know.
Yeah, the passion thing, something that I cringe when I hear is that you should be pursuing a job that you're happy in.
What is happiness?
Happiness is the wrong metric.
It's words, man. And I think I agree. Like people don't understand words very well.
Yeah.
Or concepts.
It's the days that I'm happy in my job that I also recognize I'm probably right around the corner from getting kicked in the stomach a little bit, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And so staying power, being able to do this for a long term requires you being able to pull yourself down when you're getting so high and happy.
Sure.
Knowing that, okay, this is good, I've got momentum, but you know, brace for impact because there's things coming.
Right.
You know, it also allows you to not turf out when the hard things come.
Right.
Well, so you're not in town for that long. Do you enjoy traveling for business? Is it something you look forward to?
Oh man, I since having a family, I really have a hard time leaving them. I have a hard time leaving my boys.
Yeah.
But so I wouldn't say that I like some people I've known throughout the past 10 years that really enjoy getting away because it's like, oh, it's when I get to sleep or it's when I get to go see this thing. Or I enjoy seeing you. Like I love coming to Austin, and when I get to see you, I like to see friends. But the process of traveling, no, I don't like the process of traveling.
Yeah.
I do think it does require me to access a different like I have to rely on, like I don't have my creature comforts. I don't have my wood stove fired up with my feet getting warm next to it, you know. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't have that. So it's good to get out of the routine and the habit, but yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly love it.
You ever thought of bringing your family with you? Will they one day?
Yeah, I mean here for sure. Once we get past the, 1-year-old stage and up all night 6 stage, and when I get a little older, I brought my oldest on a trip to California one time, and that was fun. I went to see the redwoods, and and he was there with me outside the boardroom, watching Daniel Tiger on his little iPad. So
How old was he?
he was 4. He did great. He's a mature 6-year-old now, but
Yeah.
someday.
Does Abby want to travel more?
She doesn't enjoy traveling all that much. No, it's not something she's like, oh, I really want to go travel and see. And I think when we get to a certain age, or like when our kids are a certain age, when she's out of a certain stage, I think we'll enjoy traveling more. But now it's just, we're okay with the idea that it's hard. 3 little ones under 6, like we're just okay with, we're here for now.
Yeah.
You're
in that stage of life that old men talk about.
Right.
In hindsight,
Right.
like, oh, enjoy it while it's here.
That's what, and we're just soaking it in, like not thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great to go here, go here, go here. It's like, well, that's not the stage we're in.
Yeah. Talk about mentorship a little bit.
Yeah.
The old men in your life or old people in your life that have made an impact. Do you have any that stand out to you?
My father has taught me a lot throughout my life. I mean, he died 7 years ago, a little over, but I probably have learned more from him, not more, but I've learned a lot from him since he's been gone, even just reflecting on how he raised me and the legacy that he left. My dad, some of the last words he ever spoke to my mom when he was dying was one of the last phrases he ever said was, "This is our wealth." And it wasn't just like, oh, he said, "This is our wealth." My mom said he was just strangely, almost like he had an epiphany. And this is like in the last few days of his life. And he just said, "This is our wealth. This is our wealth." He just kept repeating it and proclaiming it would be a better word. Proclaiming this is our wealth. And he was talking about us as his children. What better legacy could you ever leave than knowing and proclaiming that all this, and my dad didn't have a lot. He wasn't wealthy, and he wasn't ever focused on material things, but to leave that legacy for all of us, this is our wealth. Like just to be proud of us kids, to love us apart from what we did, or didn't do. Just the fact that he considered himself a wealthy man when he died. My dad died fairly penniless. I mean, he didn't have really anything material wise, but he had everything. Isn't that
Yeah.
cool?
Yeah.
Like I think about the number of people that don't have that, but I have that. I don't ever have to question that.
Where do you favor your dad versus where do you favor your mom? Like,
Oh,
where are you more like one or the other?
geez, I don't. My mom and I are so alike. We kind of joke. We're painfully alike. My mom
Really?
and I. Oh yeah, for sure.
Does it enhance your relationship or does it cause
It's
friction?
caused a lot of friction over the years, but I think now we're in a stage. I think she would agree that we're over that hump, and now we kind of see we're just so similar. We think about things similarly. I don't know. I'm definitely more like my mom than I am my father, but I don't know. I look a lot like my dad.
Yeah. What other characteristics do you have that you got from dad?
My dad. Oh, I think when I'm in my best, my dad was funny. Dude, he was just funny. Constantly cracking jokes. He had the ability to make, and his brothers too, to like if just make a room laugh, and just poke fun. I think when I'm in my best at work, like I'm making people laugh. Could be a serious situation and I just like crack a joke, straight faced.
Yeah.
And I think I got that from my dad.
You said he passed 7 years ago?
Yeah.
And you're 34?
Yeah.
So you were 27 when it
Yeah.
happened? What do you miss the most?
I wish I could have I just I don't know. It's a weird thing because I believe I talk to my dad a lot. It's hard to be sad because he went out in such a beautiful way. We all got to say goodbye, and I know he is with I know he's in a better spot. I know that sounds cliche, but like in he's right there, you know? And so it's hard. But there's things I'd like to talk to him about, There's things I'd ask him. I mostly just miss his presence. But hard to be sad,
Yeah.
It's hard to be sad when something happens in such a beautiful way, when he just goes out peacefully. There's a way to say goodbye and a way to have that reconciliation. And I remember, times where I clearly remember the time we said goodbye, where I said I love you, and he said I love you back. Like, that's what more could you ask for?
Sort of the best ending you could hope for.
Best that you could ever hope for.
Yeah.
And to go a level deeper, my mom and dad didn't get along in my lifetime. Okay, they didn't get along in my lifetime. Like they didn't like each other. They loved each other. They stayed together, but lots of tension. Guess what happened in the last 6 months of their marriage? Something I've been praying for since I was yay old, old enough to think, and happened. They made up. They reconciled. My dad came out of a funk. This is a whole topic for another conversation, by the way, because like there's a legit spiritual entity that was attached to my father influencing him. And I think it was on his father before him. I've told you this story. The same thing visited me. The same thing visited my brother. So he came out of that in the last few months of his life. And then my parents made up, became best friends again. And what better thing could you ask for there? I got to watch my parents reconcile. I mean, it's a storybook ending, so that's why it's hard for me to, I miss them, but man, that's pretty beautiful,
Yeah. How often do you think about your legacy or your last name or what you want to leave behind and the imprint you want to make?
I think about it on my boys, not to put undue pressure on them, but I do. This is the way we are. This is the way we aren't. These are some things that are unacceptable, and these are things that are good and encouraged. So I look at legacy not so much in my boys of like you're going to go conquer things and you're going to go build business and you're going to be wealthy. None of that. But here's some character values that were passed down to me. I don't live them perfectly. I haven't. You won't either, but this is the way we're going to be. So I think about it in terms of my boys. And I also think the legacy of that they know that I love them. They know that I'm proud of them, and they know why. And it's not for anything they've done. So like you ask my boys today, my 3-year-old, you say, why does your daddy love you? And you catch him on the right, and he'll say, because I'm his son. He'll know that. And they know this. It's bred into him because they're my children. That's why I love them.
Hmm.
Wasn't because you did this good, this wrong, that whatever. Nope. You're my sons, and I love you because you're my son. And if more of us as people knew that about our Creator, I think this would be a different world. I am accepted and loved for who I am to God because God so loves me. He's willing to send Himself to pay for me, because He loves me. Like, that's who are you? I'm a loved child. So that's the way I think about legacy. I don't know.
You think you could have understood that dynamic, that sort of love a parent has for their kids, or the analogy that is for God's love for us before you had kids? Did you fully understand it before then?
No, I don't think so. I think it became way more clear. I had a leg up because my dad, I know, and my mom loved me not for what I did, but for who I was. Huge leg up. Huge leg up, because most people don't have that. They were loved or rewarded or punished based off of what they did, not who they were, not because there was unconditional love. I had that with my parents. So I think I had a leg up, but then I think I understood it better when I had children.
Yeah. You and I get along pretty well.
Yeah.
We agree on, I would say, most things.
Yeah.
Core principles we agree on.
Yep.
Can you think of something we disagree about?
Oh, there's probably a lot of stuff we disagree about.
Anything coming to mind? I thought about this on your way over here today. Like, most of my conversations in here have been about things that we agree on because it just makes the conversation easier. But is there anything you can think of that?
Oh, dude, I'm sure we could uncover it. I'm just having a hard time thinking about what it could be.
You don't have to know anything offhand. If you think of something before the next time you come to Austin,
yeah, let's do another one.
Talk about
what we disagree about, like a debate.
Yeah,
let's debate something. I don't know, man. That's an interesting question.
Ponder it. We'll ponder it for the next time.
Okay.
So we have a new president.
Yep.
Coming since the last time you and I talked.
Yes, indeed.
Talk about what was your approach to whether or not to cast a vote in the first place? Because I know that was something you had kind of grappled with.
Right.
But then also, if you're comfortable talking about, the reasoning behind the decision that you made.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I think for a lot of people, so we talk about security and safety. Where's your security and safety? And for me, I have to fight this idea that my security and my safety doesn't rest purely on who's in the office, like who's the political authority. And and as a Christian, I mean, if you look throughout history, I'm actually taking a course right now in ancient Christianity. So you study in the Roman world, you study in the Greek world, you study what happened to Jews and Christians in those times, or how people have been persecuted throughout time. You'll realize if you study history long enough that people are persecuted by government for their beliefs if you're a religious or faithful person. So I look at it and say I don't hinge everything on who's in office. But everybody has a persuasion. That being said, it's not like I don't care. I do care. And this is so how do I go about making that decision? I think you just have to, you look at what values you have and see who aligns with those values. And also know that, in my opinion, we're not voting for a savior, on either end of it. There's not a person that's going to come in and save everything, because you're putting too much pressure on a political system, a human structure. You're putting too much pressure on a human. That being said, it's important, but is it of the utmost importance? Is it of your entirety of importance? For me, it's not. So I always have to keep that in mind.
So what were the sort of deciding factors for you this time around?
Oh.
Or did you just not put that much thought into it?
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of people that didn't put any thought into it.
Really?
This is the way I've always voted, and I'm going to stick with that. Hell or high water, this is the right person for me, and go cast that vote.
Yeah, it's hard because our whole two-party system, it's either this or this, and it's like, man, really?
Yeah.
Because is anybody that black or white? And some people are. I'm not. there's a lot that I think there's more in common than there is uncommon. But I think for me, the thing that has, for right or wrong, the thing that scares me the most, the thing that scares me the most in political systems is at some point um, moving down the path of governmental control, like one way or another, right? So there's fascism on one end of the spectrum and there's communism on the other end of the spectrum. They're both, you and I talked about this, they're both maybe kind of alike and they both have bad outcomes. And it's a stripping of human ingenuity, human dignity, the stripping of humanity, essentially. Like that's what scares me. And I don't know, you know, nobody can predict the future, but the thing that's made me nervous is how quickly young people are leaning towards heavy socialism or communism. And that scares me. You talk to anybody that's come out of the Eastern Bloc, Romania, and like comes to the United States and they're in their like 30s and 40s or 50s. Like they don't think it's cute. They see what happens with people collectivizing agriculture. They have stories of that, you know? So I think that factored in for me is like the push towards government doing more for people and like, oh, don't worry, like we're going to take that over and more programs and this and this and this. It makes me nervous because you study history and anytime government's saying we're going to provide all the solutions, it's all up to us. I don't think you get good outcomes. I think it's when the people in a system who are able to rise up and do things with private enterprise, like that's I think when it's really strong. So
There's a case to be made for the two-party system for that reason. As much as I think having two candidates to vote for and you can either pick one or the other has its inherent flaws.
Yeah.
I think that going back to what we talked about and living in the tension between two ideals, having two parties sort of creates that natural tension.
Sure.
Where the positive elements of it would be if things start to slide this direction, you have another option that should be the opposing force for that slide.
Sure.
And that the most dangerous thing that can happen, which is kind of the direction we've been going the last several political cycles, is that this side starts to go off the rails or starts to push their ethos further. And so this side has to go further this direction just to maintain that balance.
That's scary.
And when you have this vacillation back and forth, this pendulum swinging, it swings more extreme in each direction as it goes back and forth. And
it's
so
like pastor's kids.
Yeah, which I didn't realize was there's a term PK.
No way.
That pastors talk about that's like a known term.
Yeah.
Pastors'
That's
kids.
right though.
It's totally right.
Yeah.
And I think it's human nature.
Yeah.
So the scary thing would be that when you have that pendulum that swings this direction, that in order to overcome it, you're going to have to yank even harder to get it to go this direction.
Right.
So I think that's probably what worried me the most going into this political cycle is that things had taken this shift. You know, you go back to, I mean, every presidential cycle in my voting memory, right? You had Bush, you had Clinton this direction, then you had Bush this direction, then you had Obama, I guess, this direction, then you had Trump this direction. And it was like each subsequent shift got more and more extreme.
Right.
And so there was a time where I thought, well, the only way to reconcile that and to keep it from going too extreme is just to have a firm position in the middle, and that the only way to do that would be with a third party. But then you realize that the system doesn't allow for that.
No.
And that any third party that existed was going to rob votes from one or the other.
That's right.
And so the best you could hope for is that one of the two was willing enough to take a centrist position in ways we could talk about maybe in a follow-up discussion, but take a centrist position just to hold us back into the middle.
Sure.
And be like, we're not going to go extreme this direction. And we're going to piss people off that have that bent to them.
Right.
You know, Trump wins. I think if he does the job well, or if his administration does it well, there's going to be people on the extreme end of conservatism that are going to be pissed about it.
Sure.
They're going to always want their candidate to go further as a way to offset the hard left-leaning types.
Right.
You know.
Somebody's going to be upset. I mean, it's the reality, and I think he said that well. Like, we ultimately need people to be brought together. We need people to be closer together.
Yeah.
That's up to us on an individual level, in our communities, but people being polarized and further ostracized is just no good.
Yeah.
It's not good at all.
You may be vulnerable to your own echo chamber here, but do you have a sense that things are less optimistic now or more optimistic now that political cycle is done and spoken for?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think a little bit of both. I think some people are more optimistic and some people are really upset and less optimistic about the future. So, like, the way I think about it is, okay, well, let's see where the fruits, let's see how the fruits come out. So if people are seriously worried and nervous, it's not wrong to feel that way. But like, okay, well, let's see how the fruits come here. And I think it goes back to how are you safe? Like, where is your safety? Where is your security? And if we put that on any politician, any government, I don't know. I think there has to be something deeper.
Yeah.
Because governments change and politicians change and positions change. And so if your security's on that, I don't think it's the right one. But let's see how the fruits come in. I see a little bit of both.
So put yourself in the position of somebody that's very left-leaning.
Mm-hmm.
Can you make a case for the results of this election cycle being something as a cause for optimism?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think I'm not an economist, but I do think poor people are getting poorer. I think that's a fact. I could be fact checked on that, but just from observing, it seems like it's not easy. So I think, like, economically, could we do things better to reverse our debt cycle as a country and to get on a better get into a better, healthier position in 4 years? I don't think anybody could really do that. Maybe it'd be great, but we're not. We have to stop printing money and we have to stop getting in debt. We have to stop spending frivolously. Like, we have to do that as a country.
Mhm.
So I would say economically, do I think Trump could do that? I don't know. I'm not an economist. Like,
If you're a left-leaning person, do you buy that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I do buy that. And ultimately, nobody can predict the future. So will he do a better job at that than Harris would have? I don't know.
Also, your time horizons on economic shifts are typically longer than 4-year cycles anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this conversation with a really good friend of mine who's very left-leaning.
Mhm.
And this particular election cycle was harder on this person than I think they realized it was going to be. I think they were shocked by how much it impacted them.
Yeah.
To the point that, I make a phone call to this person every couple of weeks anyways, just to say hi. And I didn't hear from this person for weeks and weeks. I guess now we're 3 weeks removed. So just talked to this person a couple days ago for the first time.
Wow.
And I had asked them the same kind of question, like, okay, stop for a second and think through, remove yourself from the emotion of the loss as much as you can, and tell me something that these results find some optimism in it. Force yourself to find some optimism. And I think I can make a good case for it, even for the most left-leaning of people. I think that what you would hope for in a political cycle governing the place that you live is that truth can prevail, and that despite people's natural tendency to want to influence the direction of something like a national vote, I think you can find optimism in that this was a definitive result. There was no, like, as many ways as you can screw with an election in either direction. I think it's pretty obvious this one went the way that the majority of the voting population wanted it to go.
The states wanted. That's interesting. It was interesting watching Trump and Biden in their interaction. It was like, Hey, this is great. Wasn't it cool to see those two sitting next to each other?
Yeah, and to have Biden handle it the way that he did, where he said, "Welcome back," and
That's interesting,
we're going
right?
to make this a. To me,
That was
if
cool.
you can't look at that and find reason for optimism,
Right.
then you really need to pause for a minute and figure out where that insecurity that's in you came from.
Sure.
Because it's not, you don't have to look far to find things to say, okay, well, at least I'm, like to your point, at least I'm going to withhold judgment until this tree bears fruit.
Yes. Right.
If for no other reason alone, you should be able to find optimism in that.
I think politics has replaced religion.
Yeah.
Because people are like, I'm not religious. That's a big thing. I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. Really? The word religion just means to realign ourselves.
Mm.
Religioso, to realign, means that you're once aligned. I'm looking for a way to get realigned with what? Truth?
Mm.
What you view as truth. So I'm not religious. Probably find something you're religious about.
Yeah.
I bet so. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that. Well, okay. Well, you might. And so I think politics is religion for a lot of people. And so it hits deep, and I don't mean to minimize it. I just mean that, man, it's intense and real for folks. And I would just encourage all of us to go deeper. Like one of my favorite Avett Brothers lyrics. You know the Avett Brothers? Oh, I love the Avett Brothers. And that when your life doesn't change by the man that's elected or woman, when your life doesn't change by the man that's elected. I like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good message.
Yeah.
Andrew, thanks for taking a little bit of time while you're here and amidst your busy schedule.
Yeah, man.
Anytime you come into town, I'm going to drag you back in here.
Dude, let's do it.
Be on time next time.
I'm gonna be a three-peat. I'll be on time.
Yeah,
Three-peat.
you could be my first third time on the
If
episode.
anybody's gonna be third, I'll just make a special trip.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks again for making the time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.